Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canadiens Connection Podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained. My name is Michael Spinella, and I'll be your host for the next hour. This is episode 269 of the Canadiens Connection Podcast, and I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio by my co-host, the editor of the Hockey News Montreal, the founder and the president of Rocket Sports, Mr. Rick Stevens. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thanks. Saying hello to all of our listeners out there, our entire audience, and it's one of those days that, for me anyway, it makes you proud to be a Canadian, and sporting the poppy on my shirt in the studio here. Watched a little bit of the ceremony from the National War Memorial, and would I think of friends, family members, and certainly members of our listening audience. And their families, and we thank them all for the service to our country on Remembrance Day here in Canada, and of course Veterans Day for our listeners in the States. So we're very grateful, and we're happy to have you here today.
Absolutely. So happy Remembrance Day to everyone, and hoping everyone takes a moment there to respect all the veterans that we have in this lovely country. But plenty of hockey stuff to talk about today, as the Montreal Canadiens had a bit of an interesting week. Lots of interesting topics to get you up to date with there. Some roster news as well, and we'll talk about some prospects. In segment 2, we have a very special guest making his debut of the season on the Canadiens Connection Podcast. It's one and only Patrick Williams, our AHL expert and guru. He's going to join us, and he'll talk about the AHL and Juraj Slafkovsky. And then in segment 3, we like to turn it over to our listeners for the Have Your Say segment. Our Canadiens Connection question of the week is, what do you think has prevented Slafkovsky from living up to expectations? We want to make sure that we hear from you. And Rick, what's the best way for our listeners to reach out to us?
We have a text line. It's easy to reach us 24 hours a day. The text line's also easy to remember. It's 5853-ROCKET, 5853-ROCKET.
And also make sure that you're following us on our social medias. Just search for @Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also check out our website, CanadiensConnection.fm. Make sure that you're checking out our comprehensive game previews and post-game recaps for every Montreal Canadiens game at thn.com/Montreal. And here's what happened since we have last spoken. Going back to last Saturday, November the 4th, Montreal takes a trip to St. Louis, and terrible game for Montreal, to be honest. St. Louis wins that one 6-3. Montreal now on a 3-game losing streak. Slafkovsky scores his first goal of the season on the power play, but beyond that, it was all about the St. Louis Blues. 6 different goal scorers for them, including 3 in the third period.
Yeah, that the Canadiens finished their road trip, first road trip really of the season, a 3-game road trip, without a win, 0-2-1, and it was a game where we saw the first goal of the season by Juraj Slafkovsky, with Christian Dvorak coming back into the lineup. Marty St. Louis was able to make some changes and slot Juraj Slafkovsky up on the top trio with Suzuki and Caulfield.
A couple days off in between. That brings us to November the 7th. Tampa Bay comes into town to visit Montreal. And not a whole lot of positives here. Tampa Bay wins this one 5-3. That makes it 4 losses in a row. Tampa scored their first goal less than a minute in, and that kind of set the tone. They had a 4-0 lead partway through the first period. Jake Allen got the pull. Montembeault went in. Montreal could not score on 5 consecutive power plays. They finally converted on the 6th one. And, of course, Tanner Jeannot gets into a fight with Arber Xhekaj, and this might be the first time that we've seen Arber Xhekaj lose a fight. Tanner Jeannot absolutely rocked Arber Xhekaj in that one, and, of course, Montreal with their 4th straight loss in that one at home to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, I think the best thing about this game was watching the live stream with you and Nathan. It was very entertaining, and I think there was those first 4 goals by Tampa. You guys were a little bit in shock, as I was. The Canadiens had nothing. They came out, and again, you had the situation where it was a back-to-back for the opposition, and the Canadiens came out flat, completely flat. Easy to blame Jake Allen on this one. I thought, in my opinion, the 4th goal was the only one that he might like to have back. The others, he didn't have a hope. The players on the ice were terrible. In particular, Mike Matheson, who continued a pretty rough patch for him, and he was on the ice for all 4 goals in that first period by Tampa. It was ugly, and at that point, we talked about bad starts and the Canadiens looking unprepared. They were outscored 8-2 in the previous 4 games. It was just awful.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And the fans in the building that night, I don't think they were happy either, because listening to the broadcast, I heard some booing, unfortunately. So I can tell that fans were not thrilled to be at that game, unfortunately. Day off in between before their next game when Montreal headed to Detroit, and they snapped their losing streak with an overtime win, 3-2. Caulfield scores the power play goal in overtime to snap that losing streak. Caden Primo makes his second start of the season, and he gets his very first win. Beyond that, kind of a snoozer, to be honest.
It really was. And not much happening in the recap that I did at thn.com/Montreal. You'll read that it was a low event game. There was very few high danger scoring chances in the game. High danger scoring chances 6-4 in a 65-minute game, which is pretty low. It meant the goaltenders, both of them, had relatively easy time of it, and maybe that was a good thing for Caden Primo to help build up his confidence. We talked about Mike Matheson struggling for over a week. He had a good game with a goal and 2 assists in this one. And Cole Caulfield, just Mr. Overtime, able to finish the Red Wings off in this one on the power play.
And I will say, too, Detroit is a team that caught a lot of people off guard at the early points of this season. They had a very hot start, and they're starting to come back down to earth. You heard a lot about DeBrincat and Dylan Larkin, their success, and, they haven't been able to score quite as much as they have in that first month of October. So there's another team that's coming back down to earth.
It was kind of fun to see Jeff Petrie and Ben Sherratt paired together on the blue line and playing a lot of minutes for Detroit. I really liked the night before the game on Instagram. Julie Petrie posted a picture of dinner at the Petrie's house, and of course the 4 Petrie boys and Jeff seated at the table along with invited guests Nick Suzuki, Brendan Gallagher, and Jake Evans. So a bit of a reunion there of sorts, and that was kind of nice to see.
Yeah, great photo. The Canadiens' record currently 6-5-2. That's 18th in the NHL, so they're starting to fall down the standings a little bit. Continue to check out Habs Notepad, Habs headlines, feature articles, and game day posts appearing regularly at thn.com/Montreal. Taking a look at our roster news, some Canadiens players practiced with neck guards this week following the tragic death of Adam Johnson. Of note, it looked like Brendan Gallagher and Michael Pezzetta were among those wearing the neck guards.
Yeah, that's right. Michael Pezzetta said the reason he had one, and of course he played with a neck guard when he was in the OHL, he said that he got messages from his mom saying, please wear the neck guard. He tried it out in practice. He said it wasn't bad, but he feels that it's something he would have to play with over the course of a summer and get used to. So don't expect him to be wearing it regularly until next season.
The Canadiens had their team photo day this past week. Not too much to highlight here beyond Marty St. Louis getting tricked and sitting on a whoopee cushion. A few whoopee cushions throughout that day. A couple of cute moments along the way. There was a drone. At one point they were taking selfies, but not a whole lot of news coming out of this one, just kind of some fun.
Yeah, I liked it. It was a little bit of fun.
And tonight on November the 11th, we're going to see the return of Raphael Harvey-Pinard back in the lineup. He's been day-to-day for a little while.
He has. He's coming into the lineup for Saturday night's game. Missed 3 games. Joel Armia will be out, joining Jesse Ylönen as a healthy scratch. So that means that Pezzetta will stay in the lineup, and Sam Montembeault will get to start against the Boston Bruins. Apparently, Caden Gooley is looking forward to this rivalry, his first game as a National Hockey League player against the Bruins.
And now it's a good time to get to our winners and losers.
And now it's time for this week's winners and losers on the Canadiens Connection.
So I'll start things off with my loser and my winner before we move on to you, Rick. My loser for this week, and I think this is a loser for a number of years now, to be honest, for a few different reasons. This is the Edmonton Oilers. They are second last in the West. They have Connor McDavid. They have Leon Draisaitl. That's absolutely unacceptable for them. And icing on the cake, they lose to the San Jose Sharks, who were pretty well, like no wins coming out of October. The San Jose Sharks got their first win against the Flyers, their second win against the Edmonton Oilers. So just unexcusable for the Edmonton Oilers to be in the position that they're currently at. And on top of that, and we'll talk about this a little bit more towards the end of the segment, but the goalie that they signed for 5x5, Jack Campbell, on waivers and headed to the AHL. Rick, if I were to ask you, what's the one biggest weakness that the Edmonton Oilers have, what would you say?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe goaltending?
Yeah. How many years have we been talking about this? I think the best goalie they've had in somewhat recent history is Cam Talbot. Since then, they've just done nothing to try and get a really good starting goaltender. Their biggest attempt at that was Jack Campbell last year. They signed Stuart Skinner long-term. Neither one of these guys are getting the job done. So shame on Ken Holland and the entire Edmonton Oilers fan base, or organization rather. I feel bad for the fan base. It's been basically since Cam Talbot, since they've had reasonable goaltending, and it's unexcusable. At some point, they'll have to figure this out, but they've really painted themselves into a hole.
I feel sorry for the fan base and for Connor McDavid. It's got to be really frustrating.
Absolutely. But moving along to my winner for the week, and that goes to one Cole Caulfield, the fastest player in NHL history to 7 overtime goals, smashing the previous record held by Frank Finnegan, if we want to go all the way back to those days, who did it in 222 games. So big congrats to Cole Caulfield, Mr. Overtime, probably the perfect player to have out there for 3-on-3, and he's been fantastic. He's won a few of those for Montreal this season, and he's looked good doing it as well.
5 goals this season, 3 of them game winners in overtime. That's incredible.
Absolutely. And Rick, you have your winner and loser this week. I think this is going to be fun.
I do. And it came, it was sparked by the event on Thursday night this past week. There was a tribute put together, a gala ceremony put together to tribute Dr. David Mulder. We know he retired recently after 60 years with the organization. And it was also a tribute to the 1993 Stanley Cup champions. It worked out as a fundraiser, $1.5 million raised for the Montreal Montreal General Hospital Foundation. Just the pictures from that event, they kind of take you back, and a reunion, a 30th reunion of the 1993 Stanley Cup champions, and you remember the 11 overtime games that it took to win the Stanley Cup. The Canadiens lost the first one, then rattled off 10 overtime. Patrick Waugh, unbelievable. And the picture, you look at the picture and the smiling faces, and Matthew Schneider Rob Ramage and Stefan Lebeau and Denis, did I say Denis Savard, Carbonneau, Waugh, Brisebois, Eric Desjardins. I mean, it's wonderful. So they are my winners of the week. I'll pause there. They are my winners of the week. These wonderful gentlemen who brought the cup to Montreal, brought the cup to Canada for the last time. And you look at these faces again, and then you get a much different feeling. These are gentlemen in their mid-50s, early 60s. They're growing old gracefully. They look good, but they're not youthful anymore. And that means that it's been 30 years since the Montreal Canadiens won the Stanley Cup. 30 years, I'll say it again. That's unconscionable for an organization like the Montreal Canadiens. And there was one of the things that we've been doing at the Hockey News Montreal, thn.com/Montreal, is featuring going back in the archive, going back in the Hockey News archive, and pulling out stories that are amazing to read. And I wrote an introductory piece to an article that appeared in the Hockey News in the fall of 1999. The associate editor of the Hockey News in 1999 was none other than Bob McKenzie prior to his TSN days. And he talked about this. This was the season preview for the 1999-2000 season. And the concern in Montreal, the speaking to the fans and the media, and Montreal weren't projected to be a contender that season in 1999-2000. They didn't make the playoffs, and they had just come off the worst season in 48 years, the season prior. They had finished with 75 points, last in the Northeast. The team was losing money. They had one of the worst deficits ever, $3.8 million. Team president Ronald Corey had resigned that spring in May 1999, and in September the Molsons said, "That's it, we're done. We're selling the Montreal Canadiens." It's one of the lowest points in the history, and his article referred to how the mighty have fallen. And what people were so upset about was going back to back and missing the playoffs. That was unheard of, and that if they didn't win the cup that season, it was going to be 7 years. It was going to be 7 years, and that since the 1940s, since the 1944 season, the Canadiens won at least one Stanley Cup every 7 years. Now, you can tell me that yes, you can't go back, and times were different, and there was fewer teams and players, all of that. I get it. But 30 years, the city was melting down in 1999 because they were going to go more than 7 years. And now that's extended. So my loser here, to wrap it up, Jeff Molson, do something. Jeff Molson, look at this photo. Jeff Molson, get upset and set as the priority to win a Stanley Cup. At this point, all your other priorities, and we know there's a lot of them, he has his other priorities that distract the team from getting the best in the organization, that there's other priorities that the media demand, or ditch all of those and set as a goal to win a Stanley Cup. So this is on Jeff Molson. And so the event, the wonderful event, has yielded both my winner and loser of the week.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice as well. And kind of unfortunate here. I was born in 96. I've never seen this team win a Stanley Cup.
And that's wrong. That's wrong. That is wrong.
That means multiple generations have grown up into this point, have never seen the team win a Stanley Cup either. So it's sad. And for all the points that you brought up, so definitely some ulterior motives going on here. And right now, I think if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, if you don't hear this and feel a little bit sad and upset. I don't know what to say.
And listen, maybe everybody has put their faith in Jeff Gorton, in Kent Hughes, and maybe that faith is justified now, and maybe fans see a direction that they can support, but they're still being pulled in different directions, and we've talked about ownership making decisions that aren't really hockey decisions, and those have happened. We talked about it in the past 2 weeks. Those are still happening, and that's not going to. It's really hard to win a Stanley Cup, especially in a 32-team league. So don't handcuff. The franchise cannot handcuff themselves from going out and getting the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, we'll take a look towards the future as we head into our Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world. Bookmark thn.com/Montreal to follow our comprehensive coverage of Canadiens prospects.
Each week, we like to highlight a Montreal Canadiens prospect, and this week we're going to shine the spotlight onto Filip Mesar, first-round draft pick. He was the second guy taken in the first round after Slavkovsky by the Montreal Canadiens, and unfortunately, he's not currently playing in the American League. He started the year there. Things weren't going well. He wasn't playing a whole lot, so he was sent back to the Kitchener Rangers, and he's been hot, 12 points in 7 games.
That's terrific. 3 goals, 9 assists. The Kitchener Rangers had a very good week. They won 4 games straight, and Filip Mesar was a big part of that, especially on Wednesday night against Owen Sound. A goal and 2 assists, a +2, 3 shots on goal. He's embracing his opportunity in the OHL.
Yeah. If we want to take a look at the USCHO division poll, currently Boston College, it remains in that number 1 spot. We talked about this a little bit last week, and no changes there, at least at number 1.
Yeah, the record is 7-1. Jacob Fowler, a big part of that, as we noted last week. Wisconsin, we talked about a big jump for Wisconsin from, I think it was 14-5 last week. Well, they've gone from 5-3. So the top 5 are Boston College, Denver, the Denver Pioneers, Wisconsin. We remember Wisconsin. That's where Cole Caulfield played his NCAA hockey, North Dakota, and then Providence in the number 5 spot.
Lane Hutson has had a pretty good start to his season as he was named the Hockey East Player of the Week. 10 points in 8 games so far, so he continues his hot streak.
This is the second time this season that he was named Hockey East Player of the Week. He had 4 goals in 2 games against North Dakota. So if you're North Dakota, that's tough. But yeah, he's having a great season so far. 8 games played, 10 points, 7 goals, 3 assists.
Taking a look at the Laval Rocket, pretty light week for them. Their last game goes all the way back to last Saturday on November the 4th. The Toronto Marlies come to town and give Laval a bit of a spanking. 5-0, the Marlies win. Laval fails to capitalize on 5 power plays. The Marlies just absolutely dominant through and through. Laval seemed a little bit sleepy in that one. I'm not sure what was going on there.
JFO was seething after this game and promised a tough week of practice, which Chris G was at practice on Friday and has a couple of articles out this weekend, one Saturday morning and one on Sunday morning.
Laval's record currently 2-7-1-0. That's 31st in the AHL.
Yikes.
Coming up, they do have a very busy week as they head on the road on November the 12th and 13th. They're going to be playing in Manitoba. They get a day off before they come back home and play against Belleville. And then on the 17th, Laval still at home once again. So 4 games coming up this week and some pretty steep competition.
Yeah, it's a busy week after having a week off. Then they go kind of 5 games in the week. Once you look at Sunday and whatnot, it's going to be a real tough test.
But maybe some of the most entertaining team within the organization right now might not be the one that you expect it to be. The Trois-Rivières Lions have been off to a great start to their season. Going back to November the 5th against Newfoundland, the Trois-Rivières win 5-2, and then the next day, back-to-back against Newfoundland, Trois-Rivières win 2-1 in overtime. Then Maine visits Trois-Rivières, and they win 4-3. Just great start to the season for Joe Vrbetic in goal. Matthew Bouchard, 12 points in 8 games. Anthony Beaugrand, he's got 12 points in 8 games, and just wow, these Trois-Rivières Lions might be a team that we want to start paying attention to. And we are. Chris G made his first visit out to Trois-Rivières last Sunday and has filed several stories this week about the interviews that he had with the Trois-Rivières Lions. Say that there's no goaltending prospects in the Canadiens organization. How about Joe Vrbetic? Joe Vrbetic has been outstanding, playing most of the games for the Lions. And on Friday night against Maine, as you said, Trois-Rivières won that game 4-3. Now, Trois-Rivières had 4 goals on 16 shots. Okay. Maine had 3 goals on 46 shots. Trois-Rivières was outshot 46-16. And Joe Vrbetic, I was going to say stood tall, but you know how tall he is. He was unbelievable. 43 saves in that game. And looking at the game sheet, he wasn't named a star. Ducharme for Maine, Albrecht and Tice Milana got his first pro goal. So good for him for getting in there. But come on, Maine. At the Cross Insurance Arena. Do better. Joe Vrbetic deserved the first star here. Currently, the Trois-Rivières record is 8-1-0-0, so only 1 loss so far, and make sure that you continue to look out for our Trois-Rivières coverage. Looking at our QMJHL coverage, as we have started to look after the hockey news QMJHL, you can find that at thn.com/QMJHL. A bit of a sad story coming out from the Charlottetown Islanders as defenseman Lane Hinckley has announced his retirement from hockey. It seems like he's had some head trauma that's not really led to anything good, right? Yeah, he announced this a couple of weeks ago on his Instagram account, and it's something that has been brought to our attention, and we're featuring. And this relates to, remember the Q made this bold decision that they essentially banned fighting in the league, and there's some controversy about that. But reading the announcement by Lane Hinckley, he's a 19-year-old defenseman, wore an A for the Charlottetown Islanders. And this is his announcement on Instagram. I'll read it, quote, "Friday morning," like I said, that was two weeks ago, "I was told that my hockey career is over. Too many hits, too many punches, too many concussions that I didn't properly heal from. The doctor said that my MRI showed that there is a 25 millimeter by 17 millimeter lesion on my brain, as well as other scars that they couldn't determine the size of. Currently, I am at risk for CTE and early dementia. That is just awful news, stunning news, difficult news to be delivered to a young man who is playing junior hockey in the QMJHL. He said, looking back at his career, his short career, he remembers a game at home in Center 200, looking up in the crowd and seeing a little boy who had his jersey on with the number 77 on his back. The kid had a big smile on his face, and he says, that was one of my proudest moments, and I'll never forget it. He said, being from a small Cape Breton town, I felt blessed to even skate on the ice of a QMJHL rink. It feels surreal that I was able to play 143 games. Before I ever played a single one of those games, my cousin Marco told me to appreciate every second of it
because before you know it, it's gone. He was right, and I'm grateful for all of it. We've talked about CTE, we've talked about fighting, we've talked about concussions. We know that Gary Bettman disputes any kind of link between concussions and CTE. This is devastating for this young man, and hopefully in the research that's done in the intervening years will allow him to live and be productive and have a long life.
Yeah, so a bit of a sad story there, and unfortunately his career's come to an end. The QMJHL has banned fighting this year, but also we talk about the big hits that are being laid on various players at a young age. It's just sad to see, and it's very unfortunate that this has led to the end of his career and potentially some long-term effects.
Yeah.
So if you want to find all the best coverage on Canadiens prospects, head over to thn.com/Montreal. If you're looking for the best English language coverage of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, head over to thn.com/QMJHL. Now it's time to get to our quote of the week, and that quote comes from Dr. David Mulder. He was honored as the Canadiens' former head team physician at an event at the Bell Center on Thursday night. And I think we were shocked as to how much information he's given us on Carey Price's injury.
Yeah, it's... Listen, Dr. Mulder, anyone who's met him will tell you he's one of the nicest men in hockey. And I don't know who's at fault here, whether it was the media for asking the question or the PR staff for not properly advising the media to stay away from talking about injuries of current players on the roster. It's kind of odd that a doctor would reveal private medical information that had not yet been made public. This is. Let's play the quote, and then we can have a discussion about it.
Yeah, no, it was very frustrating for us, and doubly frustrating for him, because he had two injuries. He had an injury to the meniscus, which is the cartilage in the joint, and we sent him to New York. Dr. Marks operated on him, tidied up the meniscus, and during the operation, he discovered that the condyle, or the important part of the femur, the big bone in your leg, had lost all his cartilage, about the size of a 50-cent piece. And so that was a complete surprise to us. And that's really what has ended his career.
Wow. Surprising to Dr. Mulder and the Canadiens medical staff, and a shock to us as well. Lots to unpack here. But, how does one lose all of the cartilage on the femur and there's no telltale signs? There's no, how does that happen? Now, I understand it's compounded by another injury, the meniscus injury. That's why he went to have the surgery by Dr. Marks, the Special Surgery Center in New York City, same place that Kirby Doc had, and the same place and same doctor that Kirby Doc, where he had his surgery. But man, oh man, should Dr. Mulder be saying this, revealing this information? I don't know. I'm not of that practice. So I reached out to we have a medical specialist this year, Dr. Stephen Morris. Reached out to him, and he thought it was a little odd that personal medical information was being revealed as well. As far as how do you play goal? How do you play goal without cartilage on your femur plus have a meniscus tear? And I think that just puts all of the entire Stanley Cup run in 2021 in new perspective. How courageous that was, not only by Carey, but Carey and Shea Weber, to both be dealing with life-debilitating injuries, and still put on the performance and carried the team the way both of them did. But I also start thinking about, after that, then his admittance to the player assistance program, and the pain that he must have been going through, and the devastation for knowing that his career was over. And you just have to wonder, what's the quality of his life going to be? He's only 36 years old. He's got a long life ahead of him. And Dr. Steve said, you can bet that there's a knee replacement in Carey's future. All of this, there's so many layers to this particular story that you say, wow. I mean, it's talk about a quote of the week. It may be the quote of the year so far.
Yeah, getting a lot more information than I think we expected, and ending on a note where it was saying that Carey Price's career has ended too was kind of a sad thing to hear, to be honest.
It is, and I know the Canadiens have been careful in kind of dancing around, given that he's they don't want to jeopardize the fact that his eligibility for LTI, because that has to be maintained, so they get salary relief for the next 2 years. This year and 2 more years. I thought it was certainly interesting. It was certainly not what was expected. And, he went on, Dr. Mulder did, and talked about things that were more public. He certainly opposes fighting and talked about concussions, and he talked about the way equipment's changed, protective equipment for the players. In his 60 years, he talked about Saku Koivu's return in 2002 and what a moment that was in the Bell Center. He talked about the injury, the injury to Clint Malarchuk and the skate slash and how that related to Adam Johnson. All things that were kind of public and fascinating to hear from his perspective, having gone through all of that over 60, with 60 years in the organization and now being the physician emeritus with as a consultant for the Canadiens. But in particular, the Carey Price one was a little bit offside, I would say.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Taking a look at hockey news from around the league, and Rick, I think you predicted that we were going to see an update on this. Sportico released their 2023 NHL franchise valuations. This comes after Michael Andlauer sold his 10% share of the Montreal Canadiens just a few weeks ago. Right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs leading the way with a $2.65 billion value. The New York Rangers in second with a $2.45 billion value. And in third place, it's your Montreal Canadiens with $2.27 billion in value. And that's gone up about 33%. So this Montreal Canadiens organization, they have a lot of money. That's a billion with a B. $2.27 billion is the worth of the Montreal Canadiens. And as you look down the list, there was really no change to the top 10. You see a lot of original six teams in there. The Rangers, the Leafs, the Canadiens, Blackhawks, Bruins, and Detroit Red Wings. So it's my goodness, a lot of money. But what interested me a little bit more was the revenue. That is the $2.27 billion is the worth of the club and the properties and whatnot. But what kind of revenue are they bringing in on a yearly basis? Last year, 2022 to 23, the Montreal Canadiens brought in $300 million. That is second in the National Hockey League to Toronto. And a big jump from $257 million in 2021-22. And the COVID year, 2020-2021, there was just $90 million, so triple the amount of revenue in the COVID year. And you think about the revenue going up, the salaries, that's the Canadiens' biggest expense, staying flat all those years. There's a lot of money there to be had. And
that should mean that the Canadiens, yes, there's a salary cap, but the Canadiens have the ability to have the best coaching staff and the best scouting staff and the best facilities and the best. There's a lot of resources available to the ownership if they want to use them in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. The NHL Hockey Hall of Fame Class of 2023 ceremony takes place on Monday. This class includes Pierre Turgeon, Henrik Lundqvist, Mike Vernon, Tom Barrasso, Caroline Ouellette, Ken Hitchcock, and Pierre Lacroix. So bit of a mix of different types of people getting inducted in there. I think for me, the headlines include Pierre Turgeon and Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah, for sure. And it's this class of 2023. That induction ceremony will happen in Toronto on Monday. Then on Tuesday, you're going to see a ceremony at the Bell Centre to have Pierre Turgeon added to the as a legend to the Canadiens Ring of Honor. I think, if memory serves correct, he will be the 60th player added to that Ring of Honor. That's a little different than a jersey retirement that's in the rafters. It's the ring that goes around the building with numbers and names at the top. And we all know him from being the 25th captain of the Montreal Canadiens, and was the player who received the torch at the Old Forum, and then 5 days later accepted it at the, I was going to say Bell Centre. Then it was the Molson Centre. And so that's kind of the most memorable moment of Pierre Turgeon in his very short stay with the Montreal Canadiens.
Yep, only really one full season. Parts of three, though. He put up 96 points in 1996. Do you feel like this is a good add to the Ring of Honor, given that it's been such a short period of time? I know it was a pretty good season, and he put up a lot of points and was a captain, but do you feel like this is a very noteworthy addition to the Ring of Honor? Yeah,
had he not participated in that very historic ceremony, the closing of the Forum, I don't think it was memorable. His stay in Montreal was memorable enough. But I'm sure there's people that would argue the opposite.
And our last bit of news here comes from Edmonton. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but Jack Campbell cleared waivers on Wednesday and was assigned to the Bakersfield Condors of the AHL. Edmonton called up Calvin Pickard as the goaltender. And I guess the hope is that Jack Campbell can go down there and re-find his game. So far, 5 games into his season, 1 win in the NHL, 4.5 goals against average, and a .873 save percentage. So just a terrible start from Jack Campbell. You really feel for him. He might honestly just not be a starting goaltender, to be completely honest. And I think Edmonton handed out probably one of the worst contracts in the NHL, unfortunately.
Really no surprise that he cleared waivers and went to Bakersfield, and his first game, Bakersfield and Abbotsford, the Abbotsford Canucks. Oh, the clip is going around social media. Just an ugly goal. It's sad what's become of Jack Campbell, and as you said, that leaves Calvin Pickard and Stuart Skinner as the tandem for the Edmonton Oilers. Do they need a goalie? Yes, of course they do. Mm-hmm. There's reports all over the place from Elliot Friedman in particular that Edmonton has reached out to Montreal, and they're interested. Edmonton is interested in Jake Allen. But Elliot says he doesn't sense anything imminent happening there. Pierre LeBrun said that Carolina is also looking for goaltending help. We news this week that Frederik Andersen has a clotting issue, and he's out indefinitely. So LeBrun said that Carolina is keeping an eye on all the 3 goalie situations like Detroit, like Montreal, to see if there's a trade available. It was Darren Drager who said, I believe it was on TSN 690, that of the Edmonton Oilers prospects, that the Montreal Canadiens have interest in Xavier Bourgault. He was a first-round pick of the Oilers, 22nd overall in 2021. And he's a player that I played with Shawinigan, a Q player. He's got a tremendous shot. Skating is iffy, hockey sense is iffy, and there's no physical game. He kind of gets pushed around a bit. So we'll see what transpires there. Of interest is that Bourgault is represented by Cortex. Of course, Kent Hughes has since leaving that player representation agency, he has gone back time and time again to players that he knows represented by Cortex. So this is something that let's just call it a slow simmer at this point. No heat yet, but could be evolving as we go.
Yeah, a good catch. I believe it was Jeff Gordon that said that he didn't really want to hang on to 3 goaltenders for the entirety of the season. So I think there are a few opportunities out there for Montreal. I don't think it matters which goaltender it is, but I think it would be nice to see them go down to 2 goaltenders like regular teams do.
100%. I agree.
So coming up, we'll hear a message from our sponsors, DraftKings, and then we'll get to our big topic segment. We'll welcome in Patrick Williams to join us. Stay with us. This is the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
We are back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw $5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football's more fun when you're in on the action, so download the app now and sign up with code THPN. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, KS. Licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles, LA. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. I'm Michael Spinella. You can find me on Twitter @TheSpinella. With me in the studio is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. Make sure to give him a follow on Twitter @Rocket Sports. You can also follow the Canadiens Connection podcast just by searching @Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And you can check out our website, canadiensconnection.fm. Just a reminder here, make sure you subscribe to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player on your favorite podcasting app. That way you never miss a single episode. And once again, the media very focused on Juraj Slafkovsky this week. And to be honest, why wouldn't they? For Montreal, the rebuild needs to be successful by collecting top prospects. Right now, it's just not gone well for Juraj Slafkovsky. He's had a bit of a bad start to his NHL career, if we're being completely honest. And, this team starts to slide towards the bottom of the standings as their schedule starts to toughen up a little bit. I think they had an easy start to their season, not a whole lot of travel, but as we get into this November month, the competition becoming stiffer and a little bit more travel along the way as well. Some fans are willing to be patient here, stay the course, but they'd like to see some progress for this first overall pick in Juraj Slafkovsky. And I know we talked about this a little bit last week as well, but this is still a hot topic. You cannot watch Juraj Slafkovsky and tell me that you're completely satisfied with what you've seen so far, right, Rick?
No, I don't think you can. Impossible to do so because and last week we played the clips from the organization, particularly Nick Bobrov, and he outlined point by point the reasons that the Montreal Canadiens chose Juraj Slafkovsky, and that he could adapt to the big stage. He had the temperament for playing in Montreal. He asserted he was dominant on the ice, playing against men. We heard that over and over and over again, that he exerted his will. He made every one of his line mates better. And all of that, we've seen glimmers of hope, but we just haven't seen the promise. And we understand that nobody was expecting a finished product. And prospects come with, and they're quite raw. And it's up to the organization to develop them. The Montreal Canadiens have had a long history of difficulty with developing prospects. Not so much drafting has been decent. Even in the Bergevin, or even particularly in the Bergevin era with Trevor Timmins, drafting's been okay, but development was horrible. And most prospects would then get shipped out of the organization before they could reach their potential. It was all meant to be different with Kent Hughes and Jeff Corton, and they were going to bring a new approach, and they put a lot of resources into development. They've built a development team. They have development specialists who go down to Laval and run practices and run drills and spend individual time. But Juraj Slafkovsky is not in Laval, so that makes things a little bit tougher.
Well, we talked about how this has been a very popular topic within the media. Well, Le Journal de Montréal put out an article, and it's entitled, "It's sad, but it's this. After 50 games, Slafkovsky is in the top 4 worst first picks in 50 years." And it is quite unfortunate. We're at Slafkovsky's 50 games into his NHL career, and we're not seeing a whole lot. There are a number of different players within this list. I believe topping this chart is one Nail Yakubov, and we know the debacle that was over in Edmonton. That's another player that went straight into the NHL and just never got a hold of themselves.
This is a severe indictment of the pick, not so much the player, because the article written by Jean-Nicolas Blanchette says he likes Juraj Slafkovsky and says, "Oh, don't dare criticize him, or you'll be open to criticism yourself." He says everybody likes him, but quote, "The reality is that Slafkovsky is the lowest producing first overall pick in the last 26 years in his first 50 games," and then puts him in the bottom 4 in the last 50 years of first round picks, and he goes through and itemizes back to 1973 and the first overall pick, Denis Potvin. And compares at the 50-game mark all of the point levels. Look at Mario Lemieux in 84 at 69 points. Now, are you measuring a first overall pick? Are you measuring any prospect by points alone? No, of course not. But it is a one part of the puzzle. It is one piece of information. He goes on to say that, he's only 19 years old, but yeah, so is everybody else that was picked in that draft and isn't finding similar struggles. He talks about that he's scored 10 goals in 3 years at the professional level, and he includes his year in Finland as that. He said that Slafkovsky has never dominated in those 3 years except in the Olympics, and that was really that 2 weeks where Slafkovsky was good on the power play. We saw a tremendous shot, and that's what I think cemented the decision for the Canadiens. So he has 12 points. After 50 games, Slafkovsky had 12 points. Only 3 players in 50 years have fewer points than him in 50 games. And he names players who were better than that. Nail Yakupov. And that hurts. That just hurts. That just hurts. We know what happened to Nail Yakupov. Doug Wickenheiser. And of course, Doug Wickenheiser was the last Canadiens first-round pick in 1980. You know how hard it is to get a first overall pick? It was 40-plus years between first overall picks for the Montreal Canadiens, Doug Wickenheiser being the last. Rob Ramage is in here, Roman Hammerluck, both defensemen, all had better points at the 50-game mark. Now, he said there's 3 players who are below Slafkovsky and names them. Gord Kluzak doesn't really count, Bruins defenseman. Owen Nolan with the Nordique had 6 points in his first 50 and turned out okay. And then the one that everyone likes to compare Slafkovsky to, and that's Joe Thornton. Joe Thornton had 7 points in his first 50 games. The caveat to that, as the author says, he was playing under Pat Burns. Pat Burns notoriously difficult on rookies, and Thornton was only getting 6 to 8 minutes a game. I think that the people are disappointed in his hockey sense, his ability to process the game. That's also mentioned in the article. Again, can this only be measured by points? No, but it puts Slafkovsky in context to say, everybody's saying he's only 19, leave him alone and he'll figure things out. You don't figure things out on your own. You need guidance. You need development. You need help. And you need to be able to process the game at a level where you can gain some confidence. And so that's why I think last week we both kind of let our opinions be known that we would have liked to have seen Slafkovsky in the AHL. That's not the choice that the Canadiens made. And listen, he got a goal this past week, which will certainly help his confidence. It wasn't a highlight reel goal by any means, a bit of a flub that made its way past Joel Hofer in the game against St. Louis. But hopefully that will help him. The issue is that the Montreal, and as you said, the Montreal Canadiens, in order for the rebuild to be successful, they need their picks to be successful. This can't be an Alex Galchenyuk situation, a Jesperi Kotkaniemi situation. They can't afford that to happen. They need to be successful. They need to devote the attention to Slafkovsky to make him successful.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that he did score a goal on the power play last week. Something that I feel like we heard quite a bit is, okay, just let him get his first goal of the season, then he'll be more confident and things will fall into place. Well, since that first goal, I feel like he's, again, kind of faded to the background, and then we've seen more of the same from him where he's not really a factor in many games, to be completely honest. He's not very good on his skates. He goes down very easily. We saw Tanner Jeannot, who's maybe half the size of Slafkovsky, knock him down, and Slafkovsky goes flat onto his back most of the time. I I don't even really notice Slavkovsky out on the ice. He had some looks on the top line with Suzuki and Caulfield this past week. Not a whole lot to show for it. He's been put into top six role. I think most of his time has been spent on a line with Alex Newhook. I don't think a whole lot of chemistry has been there. We've seen moments of him playing with Kirby Dach. It's been a little bit better, but again, I don't think we can really look at this and say, oh, well, it's Slavkovsky's line mates that are the problem. No, I mean, Slavkovsky needs to take some ownership in it himself. And, well, the development path for him so far in the NHL, I think it's been more of a non-development path. No, right now, the only guy who's allowed to speak to him is Marty St. Louis. It seems like a bit of a quirky rule. Last year, we saw Slavkovsky mostly as a fourth liner. He had a few looks in the top six, but mostly he was towards the bottom of the lineup. I think the idea there was put him out against the other teams, like weaker D pairings and whatnot, to see what he can do. That didn't really do a whole lot for him. This year, he's getting a lot more time on the ice, and again, I don't think I've seen really any change in his game throughout his first two seasons so far.
Yeah, just 2 points, a goal and 1 assist, and lots of time between those two events in 13 games this season, and 10 points in 39 games last season in the NHL. Now, I said that the measuring points is kind of simplistic in the first 50 games. It's one measure, but it's pretty simplistic. If you want to get into analytics this season, if you look at Slavkovsky's goals above replacement, it's minus 2.1. What does that mean? Second worst on the team. What about his wins above replacement? Minus 0.3. Second worst on the team. Who's worse? Alex Newhook, unfortunately. It's his line mates. Remember those words. He repeated it over and over again. Bobrov. Slavkovsky is the player who carries the mail. You remember that phrase? Remember it. He repeated it. He said no matter what team he was on, Slavkovsky had the ability to make his line mates better. He was driving the play on the line, and we haven't seen that at all so far.
I don't think I've seen too many occasions in which Slavkovsky is the one carrying the puck on his stick. The eye test really has not benefited Slavkovsky, and you talked about analytics and the stats there too. It's just not going too well. What do you think about Montreal's approach to their, I guess, quote-unquote, development so far with Slavkovsky in the NHL?
Well, as I said, we let our opinions be known. I think there are two development paths for Slavkovsky. There were three. One would have been sending him to Europe, but the Canadiens didn't like the way he was treated when he played for in Finland in the Liga for TPS. So that option was eliminated. Is it clear that they don't have an interest in sending him to Laval? We'll talk in a minute with Patrick Williams, who I call him the AHL guru. He knows all things. He knows the history of the game. He knows why the AHL is considered such a tremendous development league. But the Canadiens seem focused on the fact that Yuri Slavkovsky, the best place for him to learn, the best development path for him is with the Montreal Canadiens. And that, it seems to me, that they have decided, we remember that Marty St. Louis' entrance to NHL coaching was a very brief stint as a consultant, a skills coach, worked on the power play mostly with Columbus. But Marty St. Louis is being asked to be Yuri Slavkovsky's personal skills coach, his personal development coach, and as you said, is restricting the number of people that can have input. So you have Slavkovsky staying in the NHL, and sure, from time to time, Adam Nicholas comes in and whatnot, but really, the development path that they've set up is a direct link with with Marty St. Louis. He is the development plan. Marty St. Louis and keeping Slafkovsky in the NHL is the development plan that they have chosen. They chose last year. They have chosen for this year, and I don't think it shows any. They don't show any interest in sending him to Laval. Why is that? Is that they don't trust what's going on? They don't trust JF Uhl and see we've talked about the kind of development or lack of development that's going on. Is that part of it? Is it part of the marketing, as was said last week? Is it what is it? Or is it that they just feel this supreme confidence in Marty St. Louis that he's the best one to get through to Slafkovsky and bring out his potential? But then what happens? If you're a skills coach, if you're a development coach, are you a head coach? How can you have the time to be a head coach as well? And we talked about the dreadful starts, the unprepared nature of this team, game after game after game, and getting blown out in first periods. So there's something going on, and certainly the magic wand has been talked about to a great deal, and it appears that the fortunes of Slafkovsky are in the hands of Marty St. Louis.
So let's talk Laval Rocket, and we do have our AHL guru, probably the best, probably one of the most knowledgeable guys on the AHL. He's a very special guest today. It's Patrick Williams of NHL.com and the AHL.com. Let's welcome him into the studio as he will talk about the AHL and the development that goes on in that league. So welcome to Patrick Williams.
Thanks, Michael. This morning, I'm really excited to have with us someone that's been a contributor for Rocket Sports for a little bit of time, but his debut on the Canadiens Connection podcast. We have Patrick Williams, and Patrick Williams. You should know Patrick Williams, but if you don't know Patrick Williams, he is. I call him the AHL guru. He knows all things AHL. He writes for the AHL.com. He writes about the AHL for NHL.com. He has the Around the A podcast. As I said, a contributor for Rocket Sports, and now with the Rocket Hockey Report. What else? Well, he's a formidable fantasy football opponent. He's a very good friend. Welcome, Patrick Williams, to the Canadiens Connection.
And an eager wheeler and dealer with you.
Yes.
Fantasy football league.
My favorite trading partner.
Yes. Great to be here. It's a thrill. As you know, I'm a huge fan of the work that you and Amy and the rest of the staff do. And thank you for having me.
Well, we're grateful that you're part of our group and that you're willing to contribute your knowledge and even have the opportunity to pick your brain from time to time because you know all. The reason I thought it would be a good idea to have you on today is that there's been a lot of talk over the last few weeks, well, maybe even longer than that, about Juraj Slafkovsky, the Canadiens' first overall pick in 2022, and how he is progressing, how he's developing. To use Kent Hughes's word, he has been underwhelming so far, his performance in the NHL, and so obviously there is questions about, well, what about the AHL? What about the Laval Rocket? Would that be a place where he could better learn his craft? And so I thought we'd bring you on. And first, before we get to Juraj Slafkovsky specifically, just to talk about the AHL and about developing high-end, top-end prospects in the league. I've heard you characterize the AHL as the second best hockey league in the world, and so give us an idea of the kind of league it is. There may be some listeners who haven't paid attention to the AHL in a while, how the AHL's changed over the years, and why it might be a good spot to develop your prospects?
Well, it's a complicated question, but the sort of the long and the short of it is, for decades, the perception really of any minor league, and including the AHL, was, I think, largely shaped by, let's say Slapshot, right? Like, it was viewed as a place where, kind of old veterans going on the end of their career would play, or maybe, it was a league of has-beens or never-were's types, right? And the resources were perceived to not be very strong in terms of developments. That all started. It started to change, several decades ago. But perceptions last. But it really took off, let's say, in the 90s and certainly into the 2000s, when the AHL became the only top developmental league for the NHL. One step away. It's a league where, on a routine annual basis, you'll have anywhere from 85 to 90% of the players in the NHL at a given time have come through the AHL. In a given year, you'll see approximately somewhere, in the range of almost a half, of the AHL will go up to the NHL at some point. So it's a league where, you can play in the AHL one night. You can be in Laval tonight. You could be skating on the ice at Bell Center tomorrow night, right? And so you're getting first round picks. You also get a lot of high end veterans now. The money's very good playing in the AHL too, right? Like, if you're a veteran who can bring it both on the ice and off the ice, you can make a very nice living for yourself. And so you've seen now that teams in the NHL are very comfortable sending first round picks down. You just looked at the 2022 draft. Number 2, Shimon Nemeth, New Jersey, has him Utica for a second year in a row. Shane Wright just called up this week by Seattle. He has been spending time in Coachella Valley. David Jiricek spent a good portion of last year in Cleveland before, seemingly having graduated to Columbus. He was 6th overall, in 22. So, and so on and so forth. Same case, with other, draft years, you're getting top 10 picks. Just this past couple weeks, Rochester, they had an entire line of first-round picks, recent picks. Matt Savoy, Yuri Kulich, and Isak Rosine, all skating on one line with Rochester. Future of the Buffalo Sabres right there. So it's not kind of the league of old, rundown rinks and old veterans, right? Like, it's a much it's almost really a mini NHL. It's a great proving ground, a great development. Almost if you think about it, a lab. I hear coaches use that phrase a lot. A place to experiment with things and a really good learning environment.
Well, it's fascinating, and taking a look at this issue. There was an article that appeared on the AHL, the AHL.com, about a year ago, and it talked about the 2021-22 season. And I was, I'm following this thing, but I was shocked when it said that during the 2021-22 season, a total of 235 former first and second round picks played in the American Hockey League, which is amazing. And as you said, supporting your point that these are top end prospects, which is contributing to the talent level and the performance level of the AHL. And so it's not really seen, I don't think, as the demotion as it once was, that you're going to get sent down to the AHL and left there. Even you did an article about a month ago about the top round picks, the first round picks that were set to make their debut, and Brennan Othman and Chad Lucius and Dylan Gunther and really good talent in the league. this season.
Yeah, I mean, Brant Clark, 8th overall pick, the LA Kings, kind of had a similar in some ways path as Shane Wright last year. Started off with the NHL team, went down to the AHL conditioning, went to World Junior, back to the OHL. Difference for Shane Wright last year he was able to get an extended run in the Calder Cup playoffs. But you look around the league and you're seeing Dallas Stars, for example. They have Maverick Bork, they have Logan Stankoven in Texas, first round pick, second round pick. Playing really well there, taking a patient approach. It's a place. It was always for the most part a place where even a goalie as a first round pick would go to. But in a lot of cases in the past, you would see first rounders skip the AHL or at least have a very quick stop. But now you're seeing I think there's a greater awareness of the importance of giving these players a real well-rounded education. I mean, it's also, I think, goes hand in hand with the ever-increasing emphasis on having two-way players. Like you can't be a one-way player in the NHL anymore. And so best place generally to learn that, other side of the game, because for the most part, these players have all, they've all, gotten to where they're at by being able to produce, with the puck on their stick. Well, the AHL is where you learn to play with the puck not on your stick, right? And so, that emphasis really in the NHL itself in terms of the game is kind of where the AHL comes in, and that's where you really gets the opportunity to make a player a well-rounded player. And that's certainly, I think, something the AHL, as a league, its coaching staffs, have all really emphasized a lot. And it's you don't see the one-dimensional players, in the NHL today that you might have seen back in the 80s and 90s, for example. You have to be. It's almost a prerequisite to be a top, if you're going to stick in the NHL for any length of time, that you're going to be able to play both sides. And you have to do that, and most players don't want to, or most teams, I should say, don't want players trying to learn that on the fly in the NHL because it's not a forgiving environment.
No, absolutely. So we're talking in general about why the AHL might be a destination for prospects, but what about Juraj Slafkovsky specifically, and maybe, I've heard people make the case that it's a different situation. He's a first overall pick, and apparently, a first overall pick hasn't gone to the AHL since biblical times, and it's a lost commandment that thou shalt not send a. But setting that aside, and there's also the argument of whether Slafkovsky should have been the first overall pick to begin with. But what could he benefit from? I think we both see a talented young player with some raw talent, but how could he benefit from going to the Laval Rocket?
Well, I think for one is it's the NHL is a wins oriented league first and foremost. Winning is all that matters, right? The AHL obviously winning matters, but there's certainly an emphasis also on individual development. And it's a more forgiving environment too, where if you make a mistake in the NHL, there's a good chance it's in your own net.
Yeah.
The AHL, you can get away with things a little bit more. Now that can be a double-edged sword too. You can have some bad habits get reinforced that way if you're not careful, but you're also doing so just in less of a fishbowl environment, right? It's certainly Montreal is kind of the ultimate example of that, in terms of the pressure. Whereas you go to the AHL and you go on the road. Let's say the Laval Rocket go on the road. They go down to Syracuse, Rochester, Utica for a weekend. You're kind of in your own little bubble there, right? The media is not going to be following you around. You're not on RDS or TSN highlights every night. You're able to just kind of you're almost in your own little cocoon there. Just 25 players on the team, going from one city to the next, playing, and it's just, I think, a more conducive environment to being able to kind of just really buckle down and focus, almost like a student studying for exams. Where there are no outside distractions. So I think you look at like the Nemec, you look at a Wright, you look at a Jiricek just most recently. It was a good move by those clubs to get their players into that type of environment, and I think all three players are that much better for it.
Yeah. So what do we know about Kent Hughes? Obviously, on the agent side, so didn't have the experience. But what do we know about Jeff Gorton and his use of the AHL to develop prospects when he was with the New York Rangers?
Yeah, so it's funny how things are a small world. So let's take Elias Anderson, who's been playing in Laval this season, off to a great start. Ran a little bit of an injury issue recently, but he was a 7th overall pick by the New York Rangers, and while Jeff Gorton was in New York, and had a very kind of up and down time with the Rangers. Went literally speaking, back and forth to the NHL and AHL, and he was there. He had a player that's coming out of the Swedish Hockey League. He had some experience there at a very young age. An excellent lead to have had that experience. He had obviously had success at the World Junior level. Comes in and ran into some real turbulence, I guess you'd call it, at the AHL level. It's a tough league. I think people expect, well, you're a first round pick, especially a top 10, you're going to come in and just absolutely dominate in the AHL. That's not always the case.
Yeah.
It can be, an unforgiving league in its own right. The schedules are grind. It's the play style can certainly be much different from what players are accustomed to, either coming in from junior or college, or it's a little bit more wide open, simply because the players just aren't as skilled defensively. And coming over from Europe, obviously, where there's an adjustment range size wise. So he had some ups and downs. Vitaly Kravtsov, another one, who was a 9th overall pick. He had a pretty rocky time in the New York Rangers system, going back and forth New York to Hartford as well. So it's and obviously there's a lot of outside, no two similar situations are exactly the same. The NHL teams are in different places in terms of, whether you're a contender or not a contender. So it's not always a apples to apples type of comparison, but, those are just kind of two, fairly recent examples. Anderson, Kravtsov is back in the KHL. Anderson ended up going to LA system, ran into some injuries there. He's 25 now, signed with, obviously with Montreal this past summer, and is trying to get his career back on track now at age 25. But, it's difficult. He's, there's a lot of time there that's kind of been, not just the most productive time for him, unfortunately. So, it's, it can be a situation where first round picks are not a surefire thing by any stretch. And even, you get, 7th overall pick, a guy that was really expected to be a hit. And even that, it's very easy for things to go off track.
Well, you are a wealth of information always, and we're thrilled that you're going to be on the Canadiens Connection on a regular basis, on a monthly basis this season, and you're going to be able to provide us with your wealth of knowledge and help us understand how Canadiens prospects in particularly are faring as this season goes along. thank you for this appearance. We're already looking forward to your next appearance. I should say that if you're not following Patrick Williams, and you should be, on Twitter, on X, it's at PWilliams AHL. And just while we have a couple of minutes, Patrick, talk about. I know that one of my favorite reads every week on the AHL.com is your weekend watch, what you should be watching for in the AHL. But you also have you had a fascinating story this week about a cancer diagnosis and tying that into Hockey Fights Cancer. Can you just we'll take a few minutes here to talk about that story, because I was moved by it.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Julia Mesar, she is an intern for the Wilkes-Barre Strand Penguins. Obviously, they're Pittsburgh's affiliate. 20 years old. So your typical 20-year-old, just going through life. You know, she had 4 part-time jobs, an internship. Obviously, she was in university taking at one point 30 credits in the semester, which I didn't even know was possible to do that much. But she was, a double major. And then she added a minor in communications on top of that. So, so basically just a girl who has always been somebody who's just a real go-getter. She started with the Penguins as on their ice crew at age 14. Came to the team looking for a job. I think they were all at first. It's funny, I was talking to them. They were all kind of at first like, who's this? Like this 14-year-old showing up. But, it was like she was just one of those people that was really determined to break into hockey, and, ended up being like, the top person on the crew, really impressed the team. She's a marketing and sports management, major. So she's, looking to break into sports, full-time as a career. And, so she started the internship with the team. And then this past summer, she gets a diagnosis of stage 4 metastatic melanoma cancer. And, you can imagine, for anybody that would just hit them, like a ton of bricks. And, certainly I think at age 20, she had no prior indications of anything being off in terms of health. And, so she's going through a tough fight right now for sure. She's been hospitalized for about the past month or so, I guess. And she's, just a great, real great spirit, wonderful head on her shoulders, going through such a difficult time. And yet, very positive mentality, very, very determined. And, so the team this Saturday night, they're playing Syracuse, but they're going to have a group night where, it's called Penguin for a Day, where, local, kind of local men's league players will all come play a game, pre-game on the ice there at the arena. And then, they'll buy tickets, and then a portion of the proceeds that night go to help her expenses, which, you can imagine are pretty considerable going through this. So, she has a GoFundMe site set up there that's, it was when the team kind of approached me with the story, it's just like, it's different from writing your typical prospect story or hockey story, right? Like it's, like the amount of you just feel this pressure to get everything just right, and she such a great interview, like, she's a real chatterbox, loves to talk hockey, loves, to just, even through going through all this, her concern is, how can I get the word out to other people to help them, going through, maybe a similar situation, or just some type of life challenge, and just sort of a very selfless type of person. And so, Yeah, it was. You said it was a moving story to read, and it was a moving story to write, and just real, real inspirational person, and it's somebody that I think has really captured kind of the emotion of the entire kind of operation there in Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and we're all just wishing her a lot of great fortune in this whole thing, and looking forward to her getting back into the hockey world as soon as possible.
Well, I liked VP of Operations for Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Brian Coe said that she's part of our department. She's in his mind that she's coming back, and he can't wait for her to contribute. And in sometimes we put the players up on a pedestal, and they're distant, they're heroes, but hockey is made up of real people, and people just like everybody else. I wanted to spend a minute, especially during November, as we focus on Hockey Fights Cancer and Movember, and read Patrick's article. And if you'd like to help out, there is a GoFundMe link there as well. And as you said, we wish Julie all the best with her, with the challenge that she has ahead, and look forward to a follow-up story about her in the future. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for that story. Thank you for being on the Canadiens Connection, and we look forward to when you're with us again.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
And thank you very much once again to Patrick Williams for stepping in for that interview. Great time listening to that. Like I said, Patrick Williams, super knowledgeable, and it was really great to have him in the studio today. Patrick
Williams has been covering the AHL and really in an in-depth way, both for AHL.com and for the NHL as their AHL correspondent for many years. We're very, very fortunate that he has been a contributor with us. So you heard him on the Press Zone if you listened to that podcast. Now it's morphed into the Rocket Hockey Report on our YouTube channel, and you've seen Patrick make appearances there. We're really happy that Patrick Williams is going to stop by and be a regular contributor to the Canadiens Connection. And what better way to introduce him to our audience then let him speak about the thing that he's more knowledgeable about than anyone in hockey. If you want to know anything about the AHL, ask Patrick Williams, follow Patrick Williams, and he was able to provide the reasons why teams have chosen the AHL and the success stories that they've had in using the AHL to develop prospects, and not only marginal prospects, but top prospects, taken in the first and second round of the NHL draft.
And that leads me to our Canadiens question of the week. We want to hear from our listeners. What do you think has prevented Slafkovsky from living up to expectations? We'll hear more from our listeners after the break here. I think it's a good time to get to our final break, actually. We'll hear from our sponsors, Raycon, and then we'll have the Have Your Say segment. Stay with us. This is the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Have you started noticing how many holiday and Christmas commercials are already popping up on your television screens? Well, listen, it may be too early to start decorating for the holidays, but it's never too early to start your holiday shopping. So why not take care of it now before the crowds and packed calendars make shopping a total nightmare, especially when you can get some of the best deals of the season well before Black Friday. Hey, guess what? You can shop Raycon products right now and save up to 50% off because their early Black Friday sale is going on right now. Now, you've heard me talk about Raycon's products before, right? Their everyday earbuds are a product that I use all the time. They've got great sound. They've got one-touch environmental settings on the earbuds themselves. They fit so comfortably inside my ear, and their connectivity is always seamless. They are absolutely tremendous. Raycon first made a name for themselves in the audio space with products like those everyday earbuds, which of course are known for delivering high quality and thoughtful features like a 32-hour battery life, and that perfect in-ear fit that I talked about, that gives you all-day wear and lasting comfort. And did you know that this past year, they expanded their entire business with the introduction of Raycon Home and Raycon PowerTech? So what is that? Well, check this out. Their 5-star reviewed Magic 180 cable allows you to charge iOS, micro USB, and Type-C devices 8 times faster with 100-watt power delivery. Looking for something that's not electronics related? Well, guess what? Their faucet filter ultra filters the water in your tap against chlorine and heavy metals. It's a must-have for ensuring the water you use to wash your face and brush your teeth is, actually clean. Raycon's known for delivering high quality and thoughtful features at half the price of other premium tech brands. So it's no wonder their products have racked up tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. So, to get everyone in the holiday shopping spirit a little bit early, Raycon is offering currently 20% off everything on their site, with select products up to 50% off. So, beat the crowds and save now. Trust me, you do not want to miss out on Raycon's early Black Friday sale. So hurry now to buyraycon.com/THPN to get 20 to 50% off site-wide. That's buyraycon.com/THPN to score up to 50% off Raycon products. buyraycon.com/THPN.
Welcome back to episode 269 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. Make sure that you're following @Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit the website canadiensconnection.fm. Also, feel free to text us anytime via the Rocket Sports text line. It's 5853-ROCKET. That's 5853-ROCKET. And Rick, there's just so much going on with this team all the time. And, it's a good thing that we can provide our listeners with everything that they need to know, and they can find it all in one place. Just go to thn.com/Montreal, and you can find all of the amazing coverage that Rocket Sports has for you there. The best way to keep up to date with everything Montreal Canadiens.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons we've been doing this a long time, 15 years, and we each year put together a amazing team of talented people to be able to gather the information, to analyze what's going on, and to provide it to our audience. One place, all the coverage, thn.com/Montreal.
Also, we're on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search @AllHabs, and you'll be able to find that. Throughout the week, we post a few different episodes on there. First and foremost, the Habs Hockey Report, hosted by Amy Johnson. The latest episode is entitled 3 Short-Term Decisions Facing the Habs. Amy Johnson does a wonderful job hosting, so hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Amy loves to read out all the comments and respond with all of her viewers. Also, if you like that, then I think you'll like the Rocket Hockey Report. That's the best source to keep up to date with everything Laval Rocket. The latest episode, entitled "The Laval Rocket Won a Game, but then this happened." So great job again by Amy Johnson hosting that. Make sure you tune into that throughout the week. Also, this podcast, the Canadiens Connection podcast, gets posted there on Mondays. So if you'd rather search us up on YouTube and watch the episode on there, you're more than welcome to do that. The latest episode on there is Slavkovsky Dilemma. Should the Habs send him to the AHL? Make sure you tune into that one. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment, and get involved in the conversation. Also on YouTube, Nathan and I premiered on a live stream on THN YouTube channel. We did a nice live streamed watch along this past week for the game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And coming up this week, it's just going to be me on the 14th of November, Calgary versus Montreal. I'm going to be doing a live stream with one of our THPN colleagues and Kyle, and make sure you tune in there. We like to read out all the comments and messages from our listeners, and we like to have a lot of fun on there, so make sure that you check out this live stream watch along.
That was the last one with yourself and Nathan was terrific, and lots of people stopped by, lots of comments. And upcoming, it's going to be fun this week because I expect that you'll be taking the Montreal side. Kyle, we know, is a fan of the Calgary Flames, so you're going to get both perspectives there. We'll need the Flames fans and the Canadiens fans. Need lots more Canadiens fans, of course, leaving comments on the live stream. Watch for the link or go to the THPN YouTube channel on Tuesday night for that game.
Absolutely. And make sure you subscribe to the premier Rocket Sports Radio podcast on your favorite podcasting app, The Canadiens Connection. An episode comes out every single Saturday, and we like to do our best to keep you up to date with everything Montreal Canadiens on there. You can find every single episode at canadiensconnection.fm. Also, you can subscribe on any of your favorite podcasting apps so that you don't miss a single episode. Your inside link to the Montreal Canadiens. And Rick, it's November, so that means that Movember is underway. What can you tell us about this?
Well, it's something that we have been doing for the past 10 years, is participating in the Movember campaign. If you want to participate too, what can you do? Well, you can grow a stash. Like Michael, you had a tremendous one on the live stream. And if you want to see Michael's stash, tune into the live stream on Tuesday. I'm doing a bit of a fitness challenge and walking and biking and posting my results through the week. I believe that's the same thing that Amy Johnson is doing. So we reach out to you and say, would you like to get involved? Would you like to make a donation to Movember? Would you like to join our team, do a fitness challenge, grow a stash if you can? Hold an event. We're going to be talking about Movember all this month. And if you'd like to join us, our page on Movember.com is Rocket Sports. Easy to find, and you'll find all of us on our individual pages there.
And now we turn it over to our listeners with our Canadiens Connection question of the week. What do you think has prevented Slavkovsky from living up to expectations? We want to hear from you. I just told you the Rocket Sports text line is 5853-ROCKET. But if you have a little bit more to say, I believe we have an email that people can reach out to us at.
hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. That's hello@rocketsportsmedia.com.
We get tons of text, tweets, emails, comments throughout the week. Our listeners get very engaged with us. And Rick, we have just a few of those reactions to read out today.
Where to start? Let's start in with our YouTube folks. We have Andrew Willis that says, last year, Montreal was an AHL team, not technically, and is still the best place for Slavzilla to grow. Remember, he's 19, people. Go Habs, go. Thank you to Andrew for that. David Maslenka says, just wait and let him season a play and figure things out. All right? There seemed to be a theme here. Pierre Lalonde said, leave him alone. Poor kid, he's only 19. Connor Bedard's 18, by the way. And Alan W, 73, says, send him down, send him to Laval. So I think the common theme there is leave him alone. If you leave him alone, you might end up with a Doug Wickenheiser. Something has to be done to help and leaving him to his own devices. He's obviously struggling, and he needs some guidance. The only question is, and I don't think there's any criticism here. Everybody wants to see him reach his potential. The only discussion point here is where he can best get the help he needs to be the type of prospect that we've all been promised that he is. Turning to Facebook, Stefan Kluche says, what development? We're just throwing him to the Wolves and he's not improving. The NHL is not a development league. Mike Weber said, look how long Stamkos was until netting 50 goals. Okay. Christopher Pringle says, Clown Show has zero idea going forward. The shame and guilt all over drafting Slav that hangs over the empty skulls as a reminder that they failed. Chris is not happy. He's not happy. It's not happy. But we thank everybody. We thank Chris. We thank Mike, Stefan, Andrew, Pierre, all of our comment, and for all of those that we'll try and reach out to, that sent texts, that didn't get on the air, that sent the emails, and that reached out to us on social media.
Yeah, so love all those messages. Make sure that when you reach out to us, just let us know your first name and where you're from. That way we know who we're talking to. Also, I love the nickname Slavzilla, and I hope he lives up to that at some point. I know a lot of fans get very passionate, especially about a first overall pick. And you know what? Like you said, I think the common theme is that everyone wants him to succeed, and I think some fans are willing to be patient. It's just varied opinions on what they think the development process should be. So continue to reach out to us, as we love to hear from all of our listeners. This week is actually a very busy week for the Montreal Canadiens. Starting tonight on November the 11th, Boston comes to Montreal. Like we said, Raphael Harvey-Pinard comes back in. Yoel Armia comes out, and it looks like Sam Montembeault is getting the start for that one. And it's going to be a back-to-back on Sunday, November the 12th. Vancouver comes to town. Vancouver's been very hot recently. And then on the 14th, it's the Calgary Flames. That's when I'm going to be live streaming with Kyle, so make sure that you tune into that. And then on the 16th of November, it's the Vegas Golden Knights coming to Montreal. So 4 games, a very busy week, and some stiff competition for this Montreal Canadien.
Yeah, 3 tough opponents for sure. And the Boston Bruins, there's that rivalry. Always a good game. Caden Aguli said that he's really looking forward to the first time participating in the Bruins-Canadiens rivalry.
Looking forward to seeing that as well. So I think that's going to be a wrap for us today. Thank you all for listening. Make sure that you subscribe to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on any of your favorite podcasting apps. You can also share it on social media if you like what you heard. Enjoy the week, and happy Remembrance Day to all. We'll be back here next Saturday, November the 18th, for another great episode. Thank you all for listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.